folks, and welcome to the Slade Centers. My name is Reed, and I am the Director of Information Services. Today I'd like to talk about something that we're really interested in, which is starting a small business without a lot of capital. And I'm going to say, Reed, how exactly do I do that? Okay, before you start any business, you have to know two things. What is my need that I'm filling? Find a need, fill a need is a quote from the great movie Robot. And what you want to do is you want to always have your business fill a need that's there. If there's not a need and you have to manufacture that need, it's a lot harder. Now you're going to say, Reed, why do you ask us to do that first? Because if there's no need, guess what? You probably are not going to have a successful business. I remember one time I was down in Orlando and there was two Starbucks right across the street from each other. And you had a Starbucks here and you had a Starbucks here, and so we're like, why do you have two Starbucks right across the street from each other? Well, it turns out you had one huge office complex over here and one huge office complex over here, and so they service those needs. However, in short order, one of those Starbucks went out of business. So you always want to ask yourself, what is the need that I'm filling? Once you have identified the need, you want to ask yourself, how do I do this? How can I satisfy that need in the most economical way possible? And you say, Reed, why are you always talking about saving money? When you are first starting out in a small business, you're not going to have a huge war chest to draw from. You're going to have very limited resources, whatever you have right now. So if you know what you have right now and it's not enough, you're going to have to use ingenuity rather than money to solve all your problems. Which means that when you're doing your advertising, maybe instead of putting an ad for $500 a week in a newspaper, maybe you're going out and you're making little flyers and you're putting them under people's windshields. Maybe you're handing these out to people. Maybe you go onto Facebook and you contact everybody that you know and send them a little email saying, hey, I'm just starting a new business. Come on over and I'd like to go ahead and give you a tour of the facilities. Or if you're not, if you don't have a brick and mortar building, come to my website and check it out. I'd love to go ahead and help you with whatever you need. But you want to tell all the people that you know, to tell all the people that they know, to tell all the people that they know, hey, I'm open for business. If you're shy as a businessman, you're probably going to be out of business. So you need to tell everybody you can what you're doing. How do we get started? First, you have to be a legal entity. Now, can you do this as a sole proprietor without filing any paperwork? Absolutely, yes you can. Is that a smart thing to do? Absolutely not. Why? Because the IRS has set up certain deductions that you can take as a corporation or as an LLC that you can't as an individual person. So if you want to, you might want to start out as a sole proprietorship, but as soon as you can, change into a corporation. There's also the matter of liability. If you as a sole proprietor do something and someone gets hurt, they can sue you for everything that you have, even if they don't get hurt. If you have any assets, they can go after you. Whereas if it's a corporation and someone gets hurt, they can sue for the assets in the corporation. They can't attack you personally, which is why most large businesses are corporations or LLCs. So you always want to ask yourself, can I get away with just being a sole proprietor? Yes, you can. Is that a smart thing to do? No, it's not. Also, you don't get nearly the tax advantages. You don't get to write off nearly the expenses, and you don't get nearly the liability protection that you do with a corporation or an LLC. Next step, you want to be marketing. Marketing to everybody you know, everybody that you don't know. If you go out, what are some cheap ways of marketing? Well, one thing I do is, as I'm sitting at my computer, I always have flyers I'm printing up on my printer. And by the way, I went to a continuous ink feed system, so the ink supply system, so that it costs me less than a penny per page for a 8.5 by 11 full color photo, and it would cost about $1 a page if I did that with a just by going through Epson or going through Office Depot. So you want to keep your cost as low as possible, and so a continuous ink supply system is great. And then once I have those flyers made up, and I do these 4 flyers on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, cut them up, and I'll put them underneath people's windshields. And you're going to say, Reed, why do you do that? Everybody I do this to, I want to go ahead and show them that I have a service. Now, when you get these flyers, your first line has to be your tagline and your headline. And your headline has to tell people how you bring a benefit to them. If you don't bring a benefit to them, you're wasting their time. And what will happen is that they're going to go ahead and throw it away. So your headline has to be so direct and it has to be so convincing that they will read the rest of your flyer. Now, what happens if you don't have a good flyer is that they'll go ahead and throw this away. Next step, what about phone advertising? You can say, what is phone advertising? Do you have a cell phone? Look through your contacts. Everybody that's on your contacts is a potential customer. And you can say, Reed, I really don't feel comfortable with calling people that I know. Well, you have to ask yourself, are you presenting a good service? If you're not, then you would feel very uncomfortable. If you are you doing a disservice to your friends by not telling them what you're doing? So tell everybody that you know, as often as you can, exactly what benefits you're bringing to them. Now, I always have 2 things I'm looking at: features and benefits whenever I'm talking to somebody. I don't want to tell them the features, I want to tell them the benefits. A feature is, I have 30 years of real estate and finance experience. Who cares? But if you combine that feature with a benefit, because I have 30 years of real estate and finance background, I'm able to structure a deal so that it'll work wonders for your situation. Suddenly, I've turned that feature into a benefit and I've built credibility at the same time. So always try to list features rather than benefits whenever you're doing this. And the next step is, once you have contacted everybody you know, everybody you don't know, start putting up these flyers everywhere you possibly can. So that would be in, whenever you go to a grocery store and you see those little bulletin boards, go ahead and take along some of your flyers, put those up there. If you see a laundromat that has one of those little bulletin boards, put it up there. If you see a bulletin board anywhere, put this up. Your headline has to be so persuasive that people read that and they say, wow. Okay, another thing about headlines, don't make them small. White space is your friend. So you want to have headlines that are big, and you want to have very few bullet points on here so that someone can skim this and within 10-15 seconds they can get the gist of whatever you're doing. You don't want to have a very prose dense flyer. You want to have features and benefits that you show on here so that when someone's looking at this they say, wow, that's what they can do for me. And I'm talking about advertising as if it is the most wonderful thing in the world. It is, because if no one calls you, your business will die. And that's all we're going to do for right now, folks. Hope to talk to you soon.